Everyone feared the husband, until police realized the wife had already decided no one was leaving alive. Family annihilation cases force investigators to confront a question they never want to ask out loud. How does someone decide that the people they love most should not exist anymore? When the killer is a husband, society reaches for familiar explanations: rage, control, ego, financial failure. But when the killer is a wife and mother, the discomfort deepens, because it challenges assumptions about nurture, sacrifice, and protection. The case of Amanda Steve is one of those rare and disturbing moments where the image of the devoted mother collapses completely, revealing something far darker underneath. Amanda Steve did not appear dangerous. In fact, she appeared essential. She was the center of her household, the one who managed calendars, appointments, finances, school activities, and social obligations. Friends described her as intense, detail-oriented, and deeply invested in her family's image. She was the person others relied on, the person who held everything together. And for a long time, that was true, or at least it looked that way. Amanda lived with her husband, Daniel Steve, and their 3 children in a gated suburban community outside Palm Crest. It was the kind of neighborhood built on the promise of safety. Manicured lawns, identical houses, security patrols that reassured residents nothing bad could happen there. Amanda loved that image. She curated it carefully. Social media posts showed smiling children, family dinners, holiday decorations, and captions about gratitude and perseverance. Anyone looking from the outside would have seen stability. What they didn't see was the pressure building behind the scenes. Daniel had lost his job after the company he worked for downsized. At first, Amanda framed it as temporary, a setback, something they would overcome together. But as weeks turned into months, reality set in. Savings dwindled, medical bills piled up, credit cards reached their limits, mortgage payments became harder to meet. Amanda, who had always equated control with safety, felt that control slipping away. Instead of asking for help, she tightened her grip. She took over every financial decision. She monitored spending obsessively. She cut off communication with friends who asked too many questions. She told Daniel not to worry, that she had everything under control, but her behavior suggested the opposite. She slept less. She paced at night. She became increasingly rigid about routines, snapping when the children disrupted schedules. What looked like stress was actually something more dangerous: fixation. Amanda began to see the world as a threat. News stories about crime, illness, and economic collapse consumed her. She spoke often about how unsafe things felt, how fragile life was, how easily everything could be taken away. She framed her anxiety as maternal instinct, a mother protecting her family from a dangerous world. But protection slowly turned into paranoia. In private moments, Amanda searched the internet for topics that would later alarm investigators. She read about sedatives, dosages, and how certain substances affected the body. She researched end-of-life planning, life insurance clauses, and how deaths were investigated. These searches weren't frantic. They were methodical, organized. The behavior of someone thinking long-term, not acting impulsively. Daniel noticed changes but misunderstood them. He thought Amanda was overwhelmed. He suggested therapy. She refused. Therapy meant admitting weakness. And weakness was something Amanda could not tolerate. Not in herself, and certainly not in her family. She believed that if she lost control, everything would collapse. Her conversations with friends became unsettling. She spoke about, quote, keeping the family together no matter what, about how suffering was worse than death, about how children shouldn't grow up in a broken world. At the time, people brushed it off as stress talking. In hindsight, those statements sounded like rehearsals. In the final weeks, Amanda withdrew almost completely. School activities were canceled with vague excuses. Family visits postponed. Messages unanswered. She told people that children were sick, that Daniel was busy, that everything was fine. Behind the locked doors of their home, Amanda was finalizing something she had already decided. The day the family died was quiet. There was no argument, no explosive confrontation. Investigators later concluded that Amanda moved through the house calmly, deliberately. The children were killed first, likely while they slept. Daniel was next. There were no signs of struggle, no defensive wounds, no evidence anyone understood what was happening until it was too late. This was not a crime of rage. It was a crime of control. Afterward, Amanda attempted to kill herself. She did not succeed. When authorities entered the home days later for a welfare check, they encountered a scene that felt frozen in time. Beds made, dishes clean, curtains drawn. The bodies showed no chaos, only stillness. It was the stillness that disturbed officers the most. This was not a crime scene that screamed violence. It whispered inevitability. Amanda was found alive but barely conscious. In the hospital, her initial statements were fragmented and incoherent. She claimed someone else had poisoned her family. She spoke of threats and danger that could not be substantiated. But as investigators pressed, the story unraveled. Forensic evidence showed no intruder. No forced entry, no external involvement. Everything pointed inward, to the woman who had survived. When confronted with the evidence, Amanda's explanation shifted. She stopped denying her involvement and reframed it. She said she was saving them from financial ruin, from pain, from a future she believed would be unbearable. She insisted she loved her family too much to let them suffer. In her mind, she wasn't a murderer. She was a protector. Investigators saw something far more disturbing. They saw a woman who believed she alone had the right to decide whether others should live. A person whose need for control eclipsed empathy. Someone who equated failure with annihilation. The trial exposed every layer of Amanda's mindset. Prosecutors showed how the murders were planned, not spontaneous. How her internet searches, financial records, and statements revealed intent. How she had days, even weeks, to reconsider, to seek help, to step away. She didn't. Defense attorneys attempted to frame her actions as the result of mental illness and stress, but the jury saw through the justification. Stress does not erase deliberation. Amanda Steve was convicted on all counts and sentenced to life in prison. There was no relief in the verdict, no sense of closure, because the question at the heart of the case remained unanswered. Why didn't anyone stop her? The warning signs were there. Control disguised as care, isolation masked as devotion, fear framed as protection. But society is uncomfortable acknowledging that mothers can be dangerous, and that discomfort creates blind spots. The Steve children did not die because they were unloved. They died because they were seen as extensions of someone else's identity, pieces of a life Amanda refused to let exist without her control. Daniel did not die because he failed as a husband. He died because he trusted the person he loved most. The case of Amanda Steve is not just about murder. It's about entitlement disguised as sacrifice, about control mistaken for care, and about what happens when someone decides that if they cannot have the life they want, no one else should have it either. Some family annihilators act in moments of rage. Others plan quietly, convincing themselves they are doing the right thing. Amanda Steve belonged to the second category, and that is what makes this case so deeply unsettling, because nothing about it was accidental, and nothing about it was sudden.